Hello guys, welcome to Liverpool FC Journal. Guys, look at it's January transfer window. It's football silly season and football Christmas. Forget the 25th of December that's just passed. Forget that awkward day you have with with the families and all that sort of situation. Let's talk about real Christmas. Let's talk about football Christmas, which runs from the 1st of January to the 31st January, which means when the window slams shut at the end of this month, you're either sitting there saying, I didn't get any presents, or I got the shittest presents ever, or I'm really happy with the presents I got. Hopefully Liverpool will be sitting there happy with the presents they got, happy with a couple of presents, hopefully, at minimum. I do think we do need a couple of presents bringing into this squad. This squad does need to be strengthened still. It does need filling out. If you compare and contrast this squad with, even to some extent Villa's squad, but certainly with Arsenal and Manchester City's squad, it is nowhere near as strong and as deep. You look at Arsenal, and people can say, "Oh, well, Arsenal top of the league, Arsenal this, Arsenal that." But this is a club that we should be competing with. This is a club we shouldn't be allowing to get away from us as much as we have done. Certainly not. I mean, they beat Villa 4-1 the other day. You look at the depth of that squad that they have, and our team is nowhere near that. You look at the bench, and they've got Ben White, Gabriel Jesus, Christian Norgard, Noni Madueke, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Eberaki Eze, Gabriel Martinelli, Kepa and Kai Havertz on their bench. When Mikel Arteta turns to look at his bench, and he has options there. He has real options there with Madueke and Lewis-Skelly and Eze, Jesus, people like that. On the pitch, he's got Marino and Zubamendi and Odegaard, Saka, Gyökeres, Trossard, Hincapi, Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, Raya. He's got so many options there. Arne Slot turns around and looks at his bench and he kind of goes, well, I don't trust him. I don't trust him. I don't like him. He's a kid. That's it. There's certainly not, if you compare and contrast with the bench that we named against Leeds the other night, it's not even in the same ballpark. Even if, we've got players back and fit, like Isak and Salah's back from AFCON, it's still not on the same level. This is where we should be competing, and we certainly aren't doing that. So there is a need to strengthen there. Now, look, I think there are targets that are realistic for this January. There are targets that are more realistic for the summer. Certainly. Now, one name that obviously keeps coming up is the Joel Adoniez thing. There is such contrasting reports now about Adoniez. Sources in Ecuador close to the player are saying that it's a matter of hours. It's just about a signature now. Some sources now in this country are saying that Liverpool admire him but are nowhere near. I think the truth could be somewhere in between. I'm perhaps not as sure as I was yesterday that this deal will definitely get done. I hope it does get done. I think if we don't sign a centre-back in this window, then I think massive questions need to be asked of the manager and of Richard Hughes and of Michael Edwards. Hughes and Edwards would not come out of this situation entirely blameless. So I do think questions will need to be asked of them if we don't sign a centre-back. It is an absolute must for me. Now, one of the positions that has been mentioned as a position of need for Liverpool is the six. Now, I know Gravenberch has been playing there and has been doing really well in recent seasons, last season and in some games this season. But, he has no backup. There is no other option to Gravenberch if he's injured or suspended. We have to kind of get by with, say, Maka there or Jones there or some other combination of. And Stefan Bajetic appears to have been abducted by aliens or, I don't know, taken off to the upside down. I don't know where he's gone. He's disappeared. So, look, a name that keeps coming up is Adam Wharton, the Crystal Palace player. Again, now Palace apparently want to tie Wharton down to a new deal and then try and get £65 million for him. That's the talk. But Wharton's thought to have a lot of admirers. Manchester United, I know, admire him. Real Madrid, apparently. And Liverpool also, apparently... Again, conflicting reports. Some sources saying that they've talked to the player, or I've talked to Palace about him, others say that they're just admiring him from afar. Some saying that it was a January target, some saying that he's a summer target. But certainly there seems to be an interest because this name is a name that keeps coming up time and time and time again. Adam Wharton is a good player. I mean, do not get me wrong. This lad is a good footballer. I think if Liverpool could secure Adam Wharton, he's just the sort of player that we need to control the tempo, to be tough and strong in that midfield area. He is a very good footballer. He's 21 years old, still obviously in the development phase of his career. He's 6 foot, a very smart player. Came through the youth system at Blackburn Rovers, has played for England, is a full international. Has got a lot going for him. Certainly. his contract, yes, he is obviously coming up towards the end of his contract. But look, I think he is a player that we should be looking at as a defensive midfielder, can also play as an attacking midfielder and a centre midfielder, so can play as a 6, an 8 and a 10, more comfortable playing as a 6 or an 8. He certainly has made a number of appearances in the Premier League for Palace, 67 appearances, also played European football now in the Conference League, 51 appearances for Blackburn as well, 4 goals, 5 assists. So has obviously that background, made over 100 appearances for clubs in the Championship and the Premier League. So again, brings experience. I think we know a lot more about Wharton than we know about Ordonez. Certainly, obviously we see him play week in, week out in the Premier League. But in terms of his key strengths, what are the strengths of Adam Wharton? What would he bring to Liverpool Football Club? Well, vision and passing. Excellent ability to pick up the ball in deep areas, break lines, and thread through balls, even attempting ambitious passes. And I think this is something that Liverpool are really lacking at the moment, is someone picking the ball up, breaking the lines, breaking the low block, threading passes through, playing the ambitious ball from midfield. Not always playing these short, sideways, backwards, boring horseshoe football that we seem to be playing, but having the ambition at times to ping the ball, to create something. And that would be certainly something that Wharton would bring. Ball progression, elite at driving play forward, progressing the ball with simple, effective one-touch actions, quick, fast passing, something Liverpool are sadly lacking this season. He would certainly bring that. Tempo control, dictates game pace, knowing when to recycle possession and when to speed up transitions. I mean, again, something Liverpool are badly lacking this season. And the ridiculous comments that I've read from Slotto about the low block over the last couple of days. The stupid comment that he made about you can't pass the ball fast when they've got 10 men behind the ball. Well, yes, you can, Arna, because if you pass the ball fast, they don't get time to get 10 men behind the ball. And that's certainly something that Wharton would bring to this team. Work rate and energy, high work ethic, contributing effectively in both attacking and defensive phases. So can obviously help with defending, but also can help with that attacking area of the game as well. Calm presence and sophisticated touch, reminiscent of an old school 8, also a 6. Smart space controller, reads, triggers, blocks, lanes, and positions well for interception. So reads the game exceptionally effectively. Again, something Liverpool, really could do with in that 6 role. So, Wharton looks a very good footballer. And I think this is certainly somebody we should be taking a big interest in, either in January or this summer, where it may be more realistic to get the player over the line. Now, the other name that's come up, and look, I think, given the fact that Liverpool need a centre-back, we know that every man, his dog and his rabbit and his goldfish and his guinea pig's hamster are going to be linked with the club. Now, one centre-back apparently is Brighton centre-back John Paul Van Hecke has been linked with a move to Liverpool. Apparently also thought to be interesting Spurs as well. Van Hecke's 25 years old. He's a centre-half. Market valuation is around €40 million, about £35 million. Like I said, a Dutch player. Obviously, Arne Slot would love him, wouldn't he, if he's Dutch. 25 years old, so in the peak of his career, has done well for Brighton. He's done well. Has played 94% of their starting 11s this season, 94% of the minutes, made 16 appearances, scored 3 goals, 1 assist. He's under contract until 2027, so obviously would cost a fee as well. Has also played in the EFL Cup with 2 appearances there for Brighton as well. Now, it's thought that Van Hecke would welcome a move to a quote-unquote bigger club like Spurs, or indeed an even bigger club like Liverpool. Has experience of playing for Blackburn as well, Heerenveen in Holland, Breda in Holland as well. Has got experience of playing the Eredivisie, the Championship, the Premier League. Has played in a number in the Europa League as well. So has got European experience. I don't really see this one as happening. I think this is another just centre-half linked because he's a centre-half, because he's a player that perhaps he's looking to move on from Brighton. I think it's just another name that's kind of cropped up and been chucked out there as a possible. And I don't think there's a lot of legs in this one. I really don't think there is a lot of legs in this one. I certainly think Liverpool should be looking at quote-unquote better prospects than John Paul Van Hecke, so people like Mark Gay, obviously, but Joel Ordonez looks a better player than Van Hecke. For example, Bastoni, Schlotterbeck, or I think what we should be looking at in terms of of players. Realistically, that would be, for me, better options for Liverpool than John Paul Van Hecke. Guys, I would love to know your thoughts on that one. Look, again, rumours, talks this morning, team talk saying that we're interested in Rodrigo again as a possible replacement for Luis Diaz, obviously after missing out on Antoine Semenyo. People talking obviously about Bradley Barcola, and they've talked now obviously about Rodrigo. Apparently Rodrigo is pushing to get a move away from the Spanish capital. Obviously his playing time over there is limited. He wants to get more playing time. So again, it's it's another one that's been linked. Again, I don't see a lot of legs in this one. He apparently is looking at changing agents. When players change agents, that usually means one of two things: they want a new contract or they want to move on. So, Rodrigo apparently is pushing for that move again. PSG apparently all interested. Arsenal, Manchester City apparently also interested. I think Man City less so now because of the Semenyo signing. It'd be around about £87 million for Rodrigo, with a number of publications in Spain saying the bidding could start as little as just £52 million. Would certainly be a good footballer, though. Certainly would be a good signing. I think he's a good footballer. I think he could be a good signing. Another Liverpool target apparently is another Madrid player. This time, French midfielder Eduardo Camavinga apparently has been linked again. Now, this is a name that has been linked a number of times with a move to Liverpool. Again, talks around this player, 23 years old, still young, obviously a defence, can play in midfield, can obviously play as a left back as well, so has position flexibility, certainly something that Liverpool would welcome. Camavinga, like I said, French international as well, 28 appearances for his national team, 2 goals as well. Certainly, again, another name that, like I said, has been mentioned a number of times. Plays as a centre midfielder, as an 8, but can also play as a 6 as well. So again, would fit that slot. I'd still rather have Wharton than Camavinga, if I'm being honest with you. He's under contract until 2029, so would obviously cost a substantial fee from Real Madrid. Has played 16 games this season for Madrid. 12 of those in La Liga, 4 of those in the Champions League. But again, another name that seems to be linked with the club. So lots of names getting swirled around. And I think a lot of it is just clickbait. A lot of it is just because it's Liverpool, let's just get as many names out there as possible. But I like Wharton. I think he's a very, very good prospect. Guys, let me know your thoughts on these transfer news, on these transfer gossip. Look, I know some of us don't like it. It's just interesting to discuss it. I'm not pretending I know anything. I just want to get your thoughts, your opinions. Thanks for watching the Liverpool FC Journal. If you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel.